This show is brought to you by Profisea Labs. Visit ProfeseaLabs.com to learn how they can help you reduce your cloud cost. All right, joining me today is Anton Grishko. He's the chief architect at Profisea Labs. Anton, welcome to the show.
Hello, hello. Nice to be here.
All right. Well, first, we were just doing in the pre-show. You're one of the first people to ever bring snacks to the podcast. So I wish I could virtually, share them with you. But nonetheless, we will not have any snacks during the podcast. But we will have a great discussion, hopefully around managing cloud cost and FinOps, and we'll all get a little bit educated on that. But before we jump into all that, I think you have a pretty interesting background. So I was hoping you can kind of tell us about yourself and how did you get into technology?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I'm currently on the position of chief architect at Profisea Labs, but before that, I was a solution architect, and before that, I was working as a DevOps cloud architect for more than 6 years. And I also was just like a simple DevOps engineer, was a team lead of DevOps team, and I started my IT career with system administration. I was a system administrator, like playing with the hardware, playing with the data centers. This is my main start of the career.
Yeah, no, that's great. I like it. Playing with the data centers, like we all played in the data centers at one point in our careers. I think before all the data centers slowly went away. But I like that. And so, one of the things I really saw in your background, and I thought it would be interesting to get your perspective on it, because there's a lot of conversations about DevOps right now, right? There's the DevOps culture talk. There's this kind of running discussion. Is DevOps dead? Right? Has it sort of kind of run its course? Is it now platform engineering? And just given that you have, both implemented, I would say, been a part of implementing DevOps in your previous career, as well as kind of probably using it day to day to deliver your own products. I wanted to get your take. We'll start with the kind of simple things. Like, how do you define DevOps? And when you're trying to if you will educate or bring it to a new company, what do you do?
Nice. It's a really great question. So first of all, let's start with the first part, what DevOps is and who those people are and what they're doing actually. So for me, DevOps is actually a methodology. It's definitely a methodology. It's definitely a process within the company. And I saw a bunch of different teams, like a developer teams. It's a development team, no DevOps engineers at all, and they're just doing all the DevOps part on their own. They're automating the whole infrastructure. They're responsible for the application. But this is the rare case. Usually what companies doing, the companies is building the DevOps process within the company, which can be just a methodology between the developers, but usually it's a dedicated organizational structure. It's a dedicated DevOps team, or it could be like a big DevOps structure when you have DevOps engineers assigned per each project or per each team. So that's one of the cases. How I was doing the DevOps. I've been in a lot of different projects. I've been a part of the startups, and I also was even working for a couple of American banks. And how DevOps is implemented in the startups in the banks is totally different story.
I bet you've got some stories there. Go on.
Yeah, it's totally different. For the startups, it's simple. We just agree between each and everyone within the startup. Startup is usually a small company, so it's very easy to promote the ideas, promote the methodology, and basically you agree that each and everyone will be working based on DevOps practices. Everything will be automated, and you will be playing based on the book, let's say like that. On the other side, the banks or big enterprise companies, they're doing it completely different. They like the process way, when you have a document which explains how DevOps interacts with the other DevOps. They usually have, as it's called, DevOps competency within the company. When you have solution architects, so you have a DevOps architects on top of the company, and they're acting as a consultant to DevOps organization. So they basically building let's call them building blocks. They're building the frameworks, they're building the procedures, they're building the processes, and then they're just giving those processes to other DevOps teams within the company, and they're just exploring starting to
Right.
use
Makes
it.
sense. Mm-hmm. So like at a bank,
Yeah.
that's a good example. Like, maybe for all the people, because I think this is something everybody's trying to figure out. It's like, we have these great ideas. We want to implement the methodology. We want to become the culture. And a bank, we'll just use that as maybe a little bit unfairly, but we'll pick on banks for a second. It's like, that's the kind of organization that feels like it's often many people kind of work there and they come back and they say, oh, it's just too hard. Can't do it at a bank. I just wondered, maybe for everybody, since you've done it a couple of times, like, are there any, you have any tricks or tips about, okay, we've got the pipeline set up, we've got our DevOps tooling maybe figured out, but really, as to get everybody on board is like, we need to get the banking team on, like, we want them to buy in. Is there anything that you've found that makes that process go better or go faster?
Oh, again, it's a good question. Banks are very specific. It's very specific. Inside the banks, it's really hard to implement anything new, like any new processes or methodology. It's very hard to do that. What I found that within the banks or within the enterprise companies, because it's pretty much the same story, you you can create the pipeline, you can automate everything, you can use the infrastructure as a code. You can do that. But it doesn't mean that everyone else will be using that. Even your team, your dev team, it doesn't matter that they will be using it. And you need to go, you need to communicate with them, you need to convince them to start working on a new methodology, start using the pipelines that you created, and so on and so on. So the first communication, the first key is communication. By the way, personally, I was always thinking that DevOps role is more about communication between developers and operations services. It's like you're sitting in the middle and you need to communicate with everyone, and that's the first within the banks that you need to do, the communication. Second, good documentation. This is what a lot of engineers lacking. They're not creating documentation. I'm also the one who don't like to create the documentation, but we need to do that. And this is the second thing that you can do: create a clear documentation. It should be like a state of the art. It should be at least something that explains what you're trying to achieve. And then again, share the documentation with the team within the bank. Share it with your manager, with your higher management. Try to show them the benefits of that, why they should be using that. And last but not least, again, you need to talk to your managers. You need to convince them. You need to create the presentations. As always, this is what like a biggest skill that I got within the bank is basically to create the presentations. You need to create all of them, a lot of them, and you need to convince your managers that, hey guys, like, let's do DevOps. We'll be deploying like many times per week, and that's why our KPI will be much more higher, our velocity will be bigger, and so on and so on.
I like it. I think you offer some practical advice. I think in the end, so many people want to talk about this, but I think the things you just outlined there, right? Good communication, good documentation, and then, if you want to call it evangelism, of advocacy, or selling DevOps. And it's one of the things I noticed that you didn't say in there was and this is the conversation we have all the time, is it's really not about technology, right? All of those things are really the human side. And I think as, a technologist and people that like tools, myself included, sometimes it can be hard to embrace that. It's like, that's really what success is. And it's things outside of the technology. So I think that's all good advice. Maybe it's a little bit of eat your vegetables, but I always like, when people kind of, hey, it is what it is sometimes. And that's
what it
takes.
is. Yeah. I can give you, by the way, speaking about technology, I can give you another example. I was a part of the startup, and we started the startup from scratch. And initially we thought that, okay, like we're starting the startup from scratch. We should do like state of the art. Like we should use the latest technology. We should do everything, like everything that possibly we can implement. And we did it. It took us 1 year just to complete the first POC of the startup. Why? Because again, we choose the latest and greatest. We took a lot of time, and startup failed because we were out of money.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunately that's another common story. If you get, you can have the great, because and behind all of this is like business value, right? You can have the best tools, the best process, but if you lose track of the business value, just what you said, you run at some point you run out of money and things like that.
So it's not about technology, yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of money and things like that, one of the things I wanted to really bring you on today, and things we want to talk a lot about was, this idea of managing cloud costs and a little bit about FinOps. So I know you are now over at Profisea Labs, and I thought we would start with, exactly what is Profisea Labs, and tell me the story behind it. Who started it? Why did you start it?
Yeah, sure. It's by the way, it's a great story. So first of all, there is a company called Profisea. Profisea is the DevOps service company. So basically, it's a DevOps company, and we're providing the DevOps services. That's how our company started. Company started by Vera Schulman and Vladi Schulman. They're both from Israel. The headquarter of the company is in Israel, and they started this company 7 years ago. And the idea of the company was to provide the DevOps services, which we're doing perfectly for the last 7 years. Like we're doing migration projects, optimization, infrastructure as a code, working with the different clouds, and so on and so on. And while we were doing those projects, and again, you need to understand that we have a lot of them. So we have a lot of projects, and it could be like startups, it could be enterprise companies all over the world. And while we're doing those projects, customers started to ask the questions. And it's like the same questions that each and every DevOps engineer heard in his life. It's like, please go and give me the list of resources that I have on my cloud account or on all of my cloud accounts. Please go and calculate what's my cost for this month, last month, for the last half a year, what's going to be the prediction, why I'm paying so big amount of money. Let's reduce it somehow. Please go and suggest me a couple of the options how to reduce that. Can you check the best practices on the cloud? Can you check security? And those questions, they're like the same from customer to customer. And how we DevOps engineers were doing that. We were doing it like in a semi-automatic way. Like you have your own script. It could be Bash scripts plus Python, plus you're using a bunch of different tools, plus a bunch of different platforms. And at the end, you have Excel file, and you're analyzing all of that inside the Excel file in 2022.
Yep.
Again,
sounds very Excel familiar. File. Go on. Yes.
Yeah,
go on.
Yeah. And we saw that it shouldn't be like that. We shouldn't be doing that. We're wasting a lot of time for that. Because for me, just analyze one account, even if that account is like a medium account, it has like maybe like 200, no, even less, like 100 servers. You have a couple of the like a 2 EKS clusters, and you have like a database and Redis, and that's it. And you just need to analyze it. And it's taking a lot of your time to analyze it. And we saw that, okay, we need to help first of all ourselves somehow with that. And we started to automate all of that. First of all, we started to do it by ourselves, just for ourselves, without any like a startup. We created the Python scripts first of all, then we created a backend out of that, and we had like a small tool which can quickly collect you the services that you're using on the cloud, give you like a basic information how much you're paying, and then like calculate you the estimation till the end of the month. This is what we were doing. And then our CEO and CTO of the company, Vladi and Vera, they saw opportunity, and they said that, wow, this is amazing, because if it's a pain for you, that's a pain for all of the DevOps engineers, because those questions customers are asking always. And that's how we started the startup. Startup is called Profisea Labs. The naming is very, very simple. We have a company called Profisea, and we have labs. It's like R&D center within the company. So it's like a labs of the Profisea. Yeah. So we started this.
Well, I was going to say it makes sense. I think you're kind of following a path that is like, one of the most popular paths, I think, to start companies is like, you do a lot of consulting, you find those problems, and then from that you start to like build the products outside of it. So why don't we talk about that? Then it's sort of like when you sort of constrain all of this, when you take all of the, because there's sort of like an infinite number of things you can solve. I know the focus has really been on, cost management. So maybe talk a little bit about that. Like when you kind of built all these tools, how did you come to the realization that like reducing costs, and maybe it's just as simple as, that's what people are asking you, but like, why did you end up focusing there versus some other part of the problem statement that you could be working on?
Yeah, the FinOps part. So basically, that was one of the biggest struggle for us to calculate how much and how much customer can cut the costs, and basically how he can do that. That was the biggest struggle for us as DevOps engineers. Again, because you need to analyze all of that, you need to calculate all of that, and then probably it's Israeli specific, like Israeli IT specific, but usually when you're working with the Israeli customers, they don't want to get only one option from you. They're asking, like, can you give me a couple of the options and I will choose the best
Absolutely.
option.
That's right. Give me 3 options and I will pick the one that I want. Of course. Of
Exactly.
course. I
And can you
totally
imagine to
understand.
calculate 3 different options to cut the cost like on a
It
big
sounds like a
account? It's
very
like crazy.
complicated spreadsheet is what it sounds like.
It's
But go
very
on.
complicated. Yeah,
Tell me how
exactly.
you did it.
Exactly. So that's why we decided, okay, so there is a pain related to the cutting the cost on the cloud. Then we find out that there is a FinOps and there is a FinOps organization, a FinOps foundation. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Okay.
And we decided that yeah, we need to focus on that. We should build a platform that will be providing the recommendations how to save money on the cloud, and basically not only providing recommendations, but with the button apply, so you can apply the recommendations. That was the very important part, because we found that not even customers, even the DevOps engineers from a customer side, they're too lazy to perform the action. Even if he sees that he can like go and change the size of his instances and he will reduce like 20-30% of the costs, they're all lazy to do that,
Wow.
or they're
So
too overloaded.
okay. So I would say, like, I was gonna say that interesting lazy, but it's like maybe they just lack the proper incentive, right? It's just like, yeah, for them it's like they don't save the money, right? It's sort of like just another thing. I don't know. What do you think? What is their motivation? Because I think most people would click the button to save money, but I feel like maybe they just get overwhelmed. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, it's also a good question. Why it's a good question? Um, I read an article like 1 year ago. That article was from one of the AWS engineers, and the AWS engineer, he said that when company is growing, when the startup is growing, basically the first that they should focus on is the business part. So they should focus on just getting the money,
Uh-huh.
getting the clients, and so on and so on. When the company is already like on a round A, round B, when it's like established startup or established company, and they started to get like the business started to get the exact same money from year to year with a slow growth. This is the time when you need to start looking for your infrastructure costs, infrastructure related costs.
Got you,
This
right.
is what
Mm-hmm.
he said, and partially I agree with that. Why? Because I've been in a company when like you're getting like couple of millions of dollars in revenue per month the company is getting, and you see that like you can save $20,000 on your infrastructure by like reducing some of the waste or changing the instance size, and companies saying to you that, hey, you know what, we're getting a couple of the millions per month and we have a very good growth. Why should we keep our engineers busy by reducing on $20,000 our cost on the cloud, while we can like develop a new feature and get even more customers,
Right.
meaning more revenue, right? So it depends. It depends. For my personal opinion, FinOps should be a part of each and every project. And FinOps not only like a human or engineer, like DevOps engineers should do that. They should track how much they're spending on the cloud.
I like it. So
Not
let's
only
pause there, because I think, this is something people, the word that gets used a lot, but I don't think it's has a widely shared definition. So maybe let's just talk about FinOps. Like, how do you define FinOps, and like, what exactly is it when you kind of like sit down and actually start doing something?
Yeah, nice. Uh, you know what? The story with the FinOps and DevOps is very related. Like when DevOps just came up, like how many, 8 years ago? Yeah, 2013, 2014, something like that. DevOps started to pop up within IT, and no one knew what the DevOps is, right? No one knew what DevOps is. Well, everyone were talking what the DevOps is, then talking that this is the process or this is the methodology and so on. And same story about the FinOps. FinOps started in 2019. This is the first time when I heard about that and I read about that. And FinOps is basically financial operations, or like a process or methodology on how to constantly manage your financial billing information, financial costs on the cloud, basically managing your costs on the cloud, managing your capex and opex.
Okay, that makes
Let's say
sense.
like that. Yeah, that's the FinOps. That's basically FinOps operations, and you have a couple of different ways to do that.
Okay.
Again, the same story with the DevOps. DevOps is the process, is methodology, but we have DevOps engineers.
Right.
And the same with the FinOps. FinOps is the methodology, and basically it has best practices, it has rules. So they say that it's actually called inform, optimize, and operate. This is the three concepts that the FinOps has. And you can implement in different ways. You can implement it as a process, as a methodology within your company, or you can hire engineer or build the engineer or like create the engineer for yourself who will be just responsible for only this job. And this is what I see right now. Companies are building teams. It could be ex DevOps engineers, just a DevOps engineer who just focusing on a financial part. That's it. He's just focusing on the financial part, and he's like advocate. He's like saying, why do you need this database? You don't need this database. It's like a too big, or you don't need it. And so he's like advocate within the company.
Right. Okay, well, why don't we start? I think, one way to kind of think about these problems, like, let's just walk through an example. So it's like, okay, we're a large organization. I'll be the, the token executive. It's like, why are we spending so much on cloud? We should be spending a lot less, right? It always kind of starts that way. And, there's some financial pressure. And so, if I brought you in, or Profisea Labs, or, a team in, okay, first let's say, okay, we want to embrace FinOps. So maybe the most basic question is, other than the FinOps, in this case, engineer or leader leading the project, who are the stakeholders I need to get in the room, like from around the company? Who do I need to actually have in the room so we can start, implementing this process?
So of course, you need someone who's responsible for cloud infrastructure, which usually a DevOps team or a DevOps manager. Sometimes it could be like just infrastructure team. It doesn't matter.
Okay,
So you
makes
need to involve.
sense. Yep, definitely got
Second,
those people. Second,
your main stakeholder is CTO. Why? Because CTO is paying the bills. He's paying the bills. He's not paying the bills. He's approving the bills. He's approving the bills, and the financial department is basically paying the bills. But he's approving that. So he
okay,
will approve you. He will approve the whole company infrastructure, that this good or this bad, do that or do that. So
okay,
you need to involve him. Then you need to involve someone from financial department, someone who's basically paying the bills, someone who put his card or his bank account inside the AWS or GCP or Azure, someone who actually paying that. Why? Because they need to be aware about how much they're spending, why they're paying that, about the growth estimation, so on. So you need to invite him.
So I
As
think that's the
well.
one we should like pause on, because I think that's the kind of the new person, right? That like maybe everyone doesn't know that person in the organization today, but it seems like to me, and I like your input here. It seems like that's the work you got to do. It's like, again, not about technology. It's like you have to go find somebody in finance that is both approving your expenditures, but then two is you have to get them to come to the meetings, come be a part of the team. They can't just, so I think sometimes as a group, they just get emails and invoices and they say approve or disapprove, and they don't, they stay out of everything else. And it's like, I think for FinOps to be successful, right, you really need that person on the team. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. You need that person on team. Not like on a team, but you need to collaborate with that
Yeah, they
person.
need to be involved in the overall project.
They need
Yes.
to be
Mm-hmm.
involved, and they need to be involved like ongoing. It shouldn't be like a one-time action. They need to be involved on a not on a daily basis, but maybe a couple of the meetings per week or 2 weeks per week, and then at the end of the month to review the reports together with you. This is kind of the work that you will need to do with that person. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so that's
And
great. So, okay.
this is
Mm-hmm.
I will add again how everything started. We were working with the data centers. We were working the actual hardware, and we had the financial department. And if I need a new server, I basically writing a ticket that I need a new server. This is the server specification. Please go and buy it
Mm-hmm.
for me.
Yep.
And then it goes to financial department. The financial department was approving that, was saying that, you know what, you're already out of the budget. You cannot buy this the server, you need to wait for the new year. Real story, by the way. And basically, we lost this process. That was the main issue. Once we moved to the cloud, we lost this process of approval for buying something on the cloud. Why? Because we get this flexibility that you can simply click on cloud, a few buttons, and then you have a database, you have a server, you have whatever you want. With the Terraform, it went beyond any imagination. That like I saw stories when people like accidentally were creating 1,000 nodes just because he made a mistake, and then someone is paying for that.
Yep.
And we lost this financial track. We lost this collaboration between engineers, IT engineers, and the financial department, who's paying the money, who's paying the bills.
Okay, so that's good. All right. Back to our example then. So I found the person, I brought them into the team. I've got my infrastructure engineer, got my procurement finance person. We have executive sponsorship. So we're, now we're getting ready to go. So it sounds like the next thing we have to do is just, I think, figure out, I mean, this is, again, sounds stupid, but like we have to figure out like, what do we have and what are we spending? Is that like the next step? Okay. So how would I, because I think this is like easy to say, hard to do. So what is the tool, or what do you do to go in and like discover an environment or like figure that out? How do you do it?
This is what the FinOps methodology says. It says that the first step is called inform. And what that inform includes, it basically includes the inventorization. It means that you need constantly do the inventorization. It's very simple to understand. First of all, before like cutting the costs, first of all, you need to understand what you own and for what you're paying. Like you need to take a look on what kind of resources you have on the cloud, how many cloud accounts you have, and then what's your overall billing, how much you're paying for that. And during this like a first step, you already can find something that isn't logical, like something that you shouldn't be paying for. Like I saw a case when a customer said that, okay, we will try to do the inventorization what we have within the company, and they found the whole region that they were not using at all. Like the whole region within the company, they found out that like one DevOps engineer half a year ago created a bunch of different infrastructure there, and that infrastructure was waiting for developers, and no one ever connected there and not deployed
just
anything
there,
there.
idling away.
Yeah, it was working for 6 months. No one ever checked that. So this is the first step. You need to do the inventorization. And that's the problem. Why it's the problem? Because again, on each and every cloud, everything is divided. Like you have a databases separately, you have a networking, then you have servers compute, then you have other services. You have everything is separate. Even to take a look on the firewall rules, which are the security groups on AWS. Again, it's a different tab within the instances. It's like crazy. And it's only one region. If you have many regions, it's even more complicated. And guess what? Customers doesn't have one account. They have many accounts. And it's usually between different clouds. So analyzing that, it's crazy. Previously, I was working in a big outsourcing IT company. And I was doing projects related to the cost reduction. What we were doing, we were like selling to big enterprise companies the very pricey projects when the team of like 5-9 engineers is jumping into your account and they're doing the analysis. We were collecting like everything, we're collecting resources, we're analyzing that, and again we're doing it inside the Excel file. So it was taking a lot of time, a lot of effort. That's why it was very pricey. And you probably can find a lot of consultancy companies who are doing that right now.
Yeah, no,
and
definitely.
What we in Profisea Labs doing, we said that, you know what, we shouldn't be doing that. We automated this process. We are collecting the list of resources instead of you. We're generating you the architecture diagrams on the fly from your infrastructure. We're showing you we're showing it to you as a compute view, like everything in terms of compute, and we're generating you the networking diagram, even highlighting you the connectivity between your pieces within the network. So we are giving that to you so that you can easily analyze what you have. We're also collecting all the metadata about your resources, and we're showing it in one place. So we have like one page with all of the resources.
And so are you doing this? Are you getting the account, access to the accounts and then pulling that information in automatically? Like how is that working? How does that discovery process work and get inside your tool?
So we are actually a SaaS solution and a self-service platform.
Okay.
What that means? Means that people registering themselves. The registration process is really simple. And once they register, they get in the demo account. They get in the access to demo account. It's our demo account. It's on AWS. They can play with that. That's fine. At some point of time, they're like willing to add their own account. So they need to add their cloud account. They need to connect their cloud account to our platform. How to do that? There are two options. We have read-only and we have a full permissions. With the read-only, it's clear we will get the read-only access to the account and we'll be able to grab the metadata. We'll be able to generate a bunch of different recommendations and person can play with that.
Okay. And then can I do this for any type of cloud? Like if I'm on GCP or AWS or Azure, you do all three?
That's the idea.
Okay.
Not all three, currently only two.
Okay.
It's AWS and GCP.
Okay.
And we're working on Azure. Our plan is to release in Q1.
Okay, I got it. So back to this discovery side because I think this is the part that's like, again, sort of, maybe it's easy to understand but hard to do. So it sounds like is I just need to go to the team and tell me like, hey, tell me everything we have. Let me get read access to that account. Now, the other thing I've seen done, what you talked about, I'll call it like orphaned accounts or shadow IT. I find that sometimes you then go to the finance person that you've brought onto the team and you tell them, hey, give me all the bills. Let me see all the invoices you're paying. Because I hate to say it, I've seen cases like where like that's the only place anywhere it shows up. Like nobody knows. They just like there's this invoice coming in being paid, and I find that's like another way to find like I said, this sort of like orphaned accounts. Is that right? Is there any other way? Because you want to pull all of it together, right?
Totally true. If within the company like everything is good in terms of accounts. I mean, good in terms of accounts means that company knows how many accounts they have and they knows what those accounts used for. Like it's usually when a company is creating the organization within the cloud provider and then adding all the accounts inside the organization, then they have at least some sort of good practice with the accounts. What you're saying, this is the use case when customer has a lot of accounts and they don't have any clue what those accounts used for, like any clue. They just have a lot of accounts and they know what they're using those accounts for. And then the only way is of course you need to go from the financial side and you can go to the financial department. And of course, you're absolutely right. You need to.
And I think that's a good incentive when you're trying to convince the finance person to come on is to tell them, it's like, well, listen, the first thing we're going to do is you're going to give us all these bills and we're probably going to find a bunch of accounts that we can just shut off. I always say that's like the first part of FinOps is just find a bunch of orphan stuff that nobody knows about and turn it off. And you look at genius. Look at this. Look at all the stuff we turned off that nobody wants. So I think it's like, if you will, easy win on the project. So, okay. All right. So we got all this information. Let's just say I found all the accounts. I got everything. I'm pulling it together. I'm now looking inside Profisea Labs tools. Okay. And now what starts to happen? Are you going to start to give me recommendations on what to do? Like, how does that part work?
So, we have, so you have our tool in order to do the inventorization. You checked it. Everything is like fine. You take a look on the diagrams. You take a look on a list of resources. And because we are multi-cloud, we actually can generate a billing report for all of the accounts all together, and you can analyze all of them together. That's clear. So you did it. Okay, now you want to actually save the money. You want to take a look on recommendations. We have 5 main features which are giving you showing recommendations. The first feature is basically waste or wasted resources. It's like clear. We're tracking the wasted resources, leftover volumes, leftover snapshots, the resources that are idle for the last 2 weeks or they're shut down for the last 2 weeks. We're looking for those resources as well. Resources which are not used that much, like it's used only for 5-10% of their capacity. That's it. We're also highlighting that kind of resources. This is about, we're looking for like IP addresses that you're not using. We're even looking and tracking the images, the instance images, which are not used within your account. You have a custom image, but you're not using that. You're paying per month for that image just to keep it, and we're looking for such. Second, we have a functionality that gives you possibility to shut down your resources manually or per schedule. What kind of resources? Any resources which can be shut down within the cloud. Of course, like functions, you cannot shut down. That's the function, that's clear. But everything else you pretty much can shut down. And I even had a question about the RDS, that on AWS, when you're shutting down the RDS database, it will start it up automatically in 7 days. Automatically. Even if you will shut it down, it will start it up. Okay. Why? Because Amazon need to do the maintenance, and they need to start it up.
Makes sense. Okay. All right. Good to know.
But the problem is that they're not shutting it down. Yep. So they will start it up, they will do the maintenance, and it will be started up. And then,
sneaky. Again, that's a sneaky little thing. Interesting. Good to know.
It's sneaky, and inside the documentation, it's at the end, and it's like a small
it's like a footnote. Like we can't even read it. Magnifying glass to read that one. Okay. Yeah, all right. So you got it. So
it's checking it. It's checking it. It's shutting down. It's not letting it to start up.
No, I think that's great. So I like it. You've read it. So it's like, okay, so we pull it in. You're going to show me the bills, show me the stuff that I can just turn off. Now you're going to give me some schedules to idle some stuff that isn't like it. Okay. And you mentioned, I think there's 3 more. What were the other 3 things?
Yeah, 3 more. So next one is right sizing. Basically, we looking for anything that can be right sized, and right sizing is working 2 sides. So it's looking for something that is not used or is not used that much, or vice versa. You have something that is loaded for 100%, and of course we're saying to you that, hey, you know what, you will not save money here, but you like using it for 100%, like 100% CPU loaded, which is bad. Please go and
so is the recommendation here like a new instance type? Is that what you'll come back and say?
Exactly.
Don't use.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great because I mean,
recommendation you can apply it.
Oh, okay,
and
nice.
It will go create a snapshot. It will create everything. It will convert it to the new instance type, and if it will fail, it will roll it back.
All right, and so have you done the work then? Because I don't know, they were talking at AWS reInvent the other day. I don't know, I think there's like 600 different instances. Like there's just so many types. Like I can't keep track of them. So you've done some of the work behind the scenes, some kind of algorithm or to pick out. It's like, okay, if it looks like this, recommend this instance. Or is that kind of what you do?
Yes. Probably you know that on each and every cloud there is like a built-in recommendations about the right sizing. Amazon has, Google has it, Azure has it. Like you have those recommendations. The problem with those recommendations, they're too simple. They're like basic. That's it. Nothing too complicated.
Right.
We decided it's not enough, so what we're doing, we're collecting like CPU memory I/O for the last 2 weeks, going through the machine learning and getting that kind of different recommendations. Plus, we're comparing it to the recommendations that cloud has, and then
okay, good,
good,
all right,
giving everything. Answering on your question, I have one company who said that, hey guys, we noticed that you like giving recommendations to change the type from like pretty much the same instance type to pretty much the same instance type. I will give you the idea. You like using the type which is based on Intel processors, and of course we will recommend you to go again to the Intel processors.
We'll not the Graviton and other things like that.
Exactly. Why? Because we don't want to be responsible for your workload, which is running there, and we don't know your workload. You know your workload, so you should decide what instance type is better for you, the Graviton or not. Okay. But this customer said to us, you know what? We're like smart enough. We're really good in what we're doing in IT. We know our application really good. Can you show us the metrics of all possible options, like everything, even if it's going to be the recommendation to go to IRM? I said that, but you realize that if we'll go to IRM, it will break your application because your application is not supporting that architecture. I said that we know, but we're a big enterprise company and we're planning everything ahead, like 3 years ahead. And if we see that the cost reduction on like going to IRM will be very good, maybe we will sit and we will redevelop our application to support IRM. This is the use case from real life.
All right.
And we
Well,
decided that we will do that. We will show that. We
so you'll
definitely will
actually
show
give
them.
like, I mean, that's another, I guess that's kind of like a secondary part, is sort of like providing the application engineers more information so that, so they can make the decision. Cause that's something, I always think about too. It's, who has all the knowledge? It's like you have all the knowledge of all the instances and the cost, right? And somebody has the knowledge of the workloads. You have to bring that together. So kind of back to like, involving the application engineer on the FinOps team as well, right? Have them come in and say,
to make a decision.
Can I use Graviton? Can I use Intel? Like what, where is this platform specific? Where is this platform generic and things like that? Okay.
And
all right. So I think those three, and then you get two other things in there. So
we're doing the spots where
the spot instances. Yes. Tell me about that.
We're doing the spot instances. There are a couple of things that we are doing. There are no competitors in this area at all. What those things are? First of all, it's clear that we automated the process of converting the regular instances to the spot instances. That's clear, because this is a big struggle for engineers to do this conversion. Second, of course, we are managing the spot instances. Of course, we are looking for replacement when the cloud provider is taking the resources out of us. What we're doing in case if we are not capable to find a replacement, we're converting it back to as it was. We're converting it back to the normal on-demand resources. Then again, looking for the spot, and if we're capable to find it, we're converting again it to spot. And that's not everything. We can convert and manage spots not only for instances. We can do it for Kubernetes clusters. We can do it for container services. We can do it even for SageMaker, machine learning as a service on AWS side.
Yeah.
So we support more than just instances and auto-scaling groups. We support EKS.
Okay. So to make sure I'm totally get this, it's really what you're doing is you're going to say, hey, these workloads that you've got kind of running, sustaining continuously, you're going to tell me it's like, this could be a spot. You can move this over to a spot instance, and then, you can help me do that. And then you can, and of course for everybody, I think everyone knows this, but, spot instance basically sits idle, all the time until boom, it's needed. It wakes up, does its work, and then it goes back to sleep. Right.
And that's not everything. Not everything. We also can put the spot instances to sleep. We actually can shut them down based on a schedule. So, for example, we can say that, you know what, you don't have your developers are not working during the night, so you don't need to have your like EKS cluster during the night. So you can
shut that down, right? Okay.
Shut it down, yeah. And it's using the spot instances. So we can create a schedule. We can say that during the night we don't want to have spot resources at all. So the platform will not even try to create a spot resource during the night.
Got it.
And it will try to create it on during the morning. If it will fail, again, it will create it on demand. This is the fourth. The five. The five is the reservations. This is the story that I started, that customers usually saying that, please provide me with a couple of the options. My problem is that there is no reservations calculator. Like, I want to have a calculator and play with that different options. I want to give those options, but I need to calculate them by myself. That's why we developed the reservations calculator. In that calculator, you basically can choose the commitment period. You can choose for do you want to pay everything upfront or partial upfront or no upfront. You can choose for which services you want to take the reservations. And we have like 7 simple questions where people can answer those questions. And depends on those questions, we will recommend a different like reservations.
I like it. So really, it's kind of both ends, right? It's sort of like you can look at my workloads and say, move these to the spot, right? And then you can move to these long running workloads and say, hey, these are going to be running all the time. So let's do some reserved instances. And then that we can usually get some preferred pricing from our cloud vendor if we reserve it for some periods of time. So you're kind of giving me, it's like, do you want to buy, lease, or just buy on demand, right? Mm-hmm.
That's the idea. We're giving you a tool, and you are, you know your workload better than we, right? So we're just giving you a tool, and you can play with the tool. You can decide what kind of recommendations is more suitable for you, what recommendations not suitable for you. And for example, this calculator is smart enough to understand that you have a spot resources. Of course, you don't want to reserve instance those spot resources, or to buy the saving plans for those spot resources. And it's even including this shutdown schedule. So it's smart enough to understand that you're shutting it down during the night, which means that you don't need to buy the reservation for for this time. You don't need to buy like that amount of savings or that amount of reservations.
Okay. All right. Now I know we're getting short on time, but I did want to at least get on to, because I think we talked a lot about the compute side. Maybe just, give us the highlights. What about network and storage? Is there anything you're doing specifically in that area? Because I know, especially networking, people are always concerned about networking. How can you help, or what should I be thinking about there?
Yeah, the big problem about the networking is basically how to include the networking inside the pricing, inside the billing, because I don't want just to get that I paid for the networking like this amount of money. I want the breakdown. Show me how much I spent traffic for this specific S3 bucket, how much of the traffic I spent for this specific load balancer, how much I spent for this specific database. What was the price for the traffic between those two VPC peering, and like the billing that clouds have, they just combine all of that together and they're showing it to you. And there is no breakdown. What we're giving, we're providing smart enough billing information where you can go inside, you can drill down, and you can find out where the traffic was spent and how much you paid for that. And we even calculating the traffic per S3 buckets, and we even calculating the size of S3 buckets, and we're calculating even the price for S3 buckets, including the size plus networking.
Okay, and then are you doing the same kind of thing, making recommendations on like what I should be doing, like how to configure that to save money, or are you just kind of giving that as a way for me to know about those costs?
No. Of course, we're giving you recommendations like, you know what, we see that this specific S3 bucket, for example, this specific S3 bucket has a very low amount of traffic, and at the same time, you're using a completely different queue type. You need to go like to a different queue type to
Gotcha.
smaller,
So it's
and
the same,
so same
type
and
of thing.
so on. So giving that recommendations, yes.
All right, so we've done all of this. I'm going to declare success, and I think the thing that I'm walking away with is, as we all know, cloud is dynamic. New resources, new applications are going to be added and removed, and I think this kind of goes back to where we maybe started this conversation. Is like, this is an ongoing process, right? I think that's the whole point. You can't have the procurement person leave and be like, it's over. And, everyone say like, oh, we instrumented the tools. It's, you kind of see in here, right? It's like all the things you talked about. It's like new applications come up, instances run longer, workloads go from, reserve to spot, networking goes from high bandwidth to low bandwidth. So I guess that's the main message is, right? To me is to just keep doing this and make it part of your process. Don't make it part of a one-off optimization project, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? In terms of FinOps, I saw dev teams who are doing the FinOps, like in terms like I was telling you a story about the DevOps when the development team was doing the whole DevOps job, and now I saw a development team who is doing the FinOps part. But how they're doing it? They're doing it in a smart way. So, for example, they're like changing the Terraform code. They're like adding a new resource. And in the plan of that Terraform code, they're getting the message for how much their billing will be increased if they will apply it. Like they having a constant review or constant notification from the automation on how their cost will be increased or decreased if they will do or not do that or that.
Yeah, no, you're hitting on the perfect thing, and I think that's what we're all working toward. Whether it's like DevOps, FinOps, DevSecOps, and things like this. Like the thing you're talking about there is at the end of the day, we want to add the instrumentation. We want everyone to see it. And once people start to see it, they can start to act on it, right? They can make changes because I'm going to make the changes based on the pricings that I'm using in the instances because now I'm educated. Just like the security engineers would say the same thing. Like now I'm always going to do this type of code scan or security scan before I deploy, right? And it's just it's about bringing it together. So, I think that's probably a good place to leave it. I think the message is like, bring it all together, it's not really, maybe we should just call it one ops. It's not FinOps, DevOps, SecOps. It's like,
just one ops,
it's trying to build all this together. And it's like, it's not easy, right? To your point, it's like over time, just keep building those teams. So, all right, well, this has been very educational for me. I've learned quite a bit. Now, if people would like to get in touch with you to talk more about Profisea or just ask you questions, where can they find you online?
Yeah, sure. You can find me online by sending me email to anton@profisea.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Anton Greshko, very easy. So LinkedIn or email.
All right, well, that's great.
To get in touch with you.
Yeah, and I will.
By the way, I also have a blog on medium.com, so I even answering on the comments there, so we can even talk there.
All right, I like it. I will make sure that we have links to all of those at the show notes. You can probably see them in your podcast player right now, or you can go out to the website and we'll make sure you have all the information on how to contact Anton. So Anton, thanks a lot for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, if this is your first time listening to Software Defined Talk, well, then welcome. Hopefully it's been a good one. You can always subscribe by probably going to your podcast player right now or visit us at www.softwaredefinedtalk.com. There you can join the Slack. You can follow us on all the social media. And for those that want it, if you send me your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com, I will be happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world. And with that, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next time.